First topic of the day then is look. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, I used to be the look brand manager for Australia for a short period of time. During those painful 4 months, I was given the task of putting in orders for look stuff from Look to be delivered to Australia and then distributed out to all the people who sell look stuff in Australia. I'm sure none of you really give a shit about what the actual job was, but what you really want to know is obviously how shit is Look. Well, I can list a lot of stuff that was shit about them, which I'm sure you'll enjoy, so here goes. So here's a list of things that made me raise my eyebrow about Look. 1. Ordering from them is a fucking nightmare. They have insanely long lead times, like huge, suspiciously huge lead times on their frames and their pedals as well. You can put in an order in October and it won't arrive till February, right? So modelling and predicting sales forecasting and all that sort of thing is basically impossible. Fulfilling orders for customers is really, really fucking hard to the point where customers forget they've put in orders and stuff. The reason they do this is because they make them to order in a Tunisian factory and a Taiwanese factory. They've got a guy who works for them in Taiwan, some South African guy who I won't name because he's a really nice bloke. But his job is just to sit there in Taiwan and be the go-between between the factory that produces this shit and getting it out to the world. So yeah, lead times absolutely massive with Look stuff, longer than I've seen with any other company of anything ever. Look doesn't put any work in to figure out how much stuff they actually need. They wait for the distributors to put in orders and then they just sit on these orders for months on end. And when they finally got enough, they'll send them off to these factories in Tunisia and Taiwan to make the orders, which in itself takes forever. Then they'll get them out to the customers, send them back, and then sometimes half the orders have been cancelled because it takes so fucking long. Anyway, yeah, so massively long, ridiculous lead times because of a bullshit business model, right? Built on a house of cards. 2, the price of the Look frames, even the really high-end ones they make, like the Blade RS, whatever the fuck it's called, 796 or whatever, is about $600 out of the factory painted. Now, they charge 10 times that more for the frames. They're about $600, give or take, each out of the factory. There you go, right? 3, weirdly, they sell a lot of pedals, right? I don't know how many they sell compared to Shimano, but they do sell quite a lot of pedals around the world. I don't know why people still buy Look pedals. I think they've been brainwashed into it all, right? Like a lot of the cycling world is, because it's all heritage and all that crap. But they sell quite a lot of them. But every year, because they don't put any R&D into these pedals, they've just got this design they've been sat on forever that's shit. All they do is they just keep changing the materials around a little bit and then renaming the pedals something else in a sort of convoluted, complicated way to make it look like they've got an entirely new range, but really it's the same stuff. They're a classic example of one of these companies which relies on the fact that loads of middle-aged blokes seem to think that if something's anodized red and it has ceramic or titanium or carbon in the name somewhere, that it's somehow good. Regardless of how the materials are actually used, they'll think that that's good. So they're really piggybacking off this bizarre sort of late 90s, early noughties cycling world idea that ceramic plus carbon plus titanium anodized red somewhere is the bee's knees, right? It's quite cringe, but it seems to fucking sell. Ceramic Speed themselves piggyback off this idea. As we know, though, the intelligent application of materials, regardless of what the materials is where it's at, not the material that's being used itself, right? You can use steel to make something incredible, even though it's not as cool, and you can badly apply the use of ceramic bearings somewhere, charge loads of money for it, and it'll be shitter than a set of steel bearings, as we know, right, lads? 4, their paint jobs are fucking rubbish. They had loads back when I was working there. Loads of people ringing up saying, oh, my paint job's got bubbles in it, there's bubbles under the carbon, there's bubbles under the paint job, there's too much paint around the steerer, there's paint that's gone into the headset bearing seats, bottom bracket's got a spray over in it, can't fit my bottom bracket in. Paint jobs are fucking rubbish. I had access to a lot of these Look frames and a lot of Look parts. Their paint is really, really bad. 5, and this is when we get into the fucking frames, yeah? The steerer tube design is so fucking stupid, especially on those high-end frames, right? What they've done is they've taken a round steerer tube, which is what everyone else uses and is totally fine, and they've flattened the back of it, which means that you have to use their stem. Now, this leads to a load of problems. The first problem is, obviously, with carbon, you've got to mould this thing absolutely fucking bang on for that stem to be straight. If your steerer tube is slightly off, which most of them are, all of them are, then your stem is not going to be sitting straight on that bike, and there's no way to adjust it. I want to say they've done this on purpose so that everyone has to use their stem design, but I don't think they're that clever. I think it's just a load of pointless 90s design shit that hasn't been questioned ever, and they've just carried on with it. Really fucking weird. Anyway, these steerer tubes on these forks are always out of line, right? We had so many back. Ridiculous. 6 then, steel frame, and probably the biggest offender, the bottom brackets in these frames. Now, I know Ambini has said that the look bottom brackets are good, but I do wonder, mate, what your sample size was. I had access to a lot of look frames, and I saw a lot of problems with a lot of look frames. I say that in my 4 months there, I had access to getting on for 100 look frames. Bottom brackets out of line was a big issue there, and they're out of line in a couple of ways. They're out of line in that they're not moulded properly in and of themselves, so that the left bearing seat and the right bearing seat were not in line with each other. Also, the other one, once they'd moulded these bottom brackets and then they put them into a jig to bond to the rest of the carbon bits to make up the frame, they often wouldn't put them in straight, so that the bottom bracket you'd be getting, as well as being moulded wrong, the actual bottom bracket was sort of sitting out to the side a bit, or was like twisted at an angle. So even if you did manage to get your crankset through the wonky bearings, the entire crankset would be sitting at a weird angle to the rest of the frame. I saw ones that were so bad sometimes, there were chainline issues, rattly, noisy chain disengagement in the extremes. Absolutely awful. And then the other thing here is, whenever we sent this back to look, they'd always question it. It took a fair bit of negotiating to actually get them to warranty these things. Plus the warranty procedure is insane as well. It's so fucking difficult. Other companies that we were dealing with, like Mavic, Envy, those kind of people, it's almost like a no questions warranty. If there's anything wrong with it, they just sort it out straight away. Look, fuck me, man. The hurdles you had to jump through. Really bad. 7, the aero bars are a complete nightmare. They just come undone. They don't work. They got this expander bolt thing that goes inside a very thin carbon tube which forms the bar. So the expander bolt bit is screwed down onto the main handlebar, and then you put the aero extender bar bits onto the expander bolt, and then you tighten the expander bolt down. Now, even Ronald Kuba could tell me what's wrong with putting a metal expander bolt in a carbon tube and then expanding it out, right? A thin carbon tube, and then levering on that with a man's arm strength. Complete rubbish. They all just fucked up. Number 8, their staff structure is almost impossible to work out. You don't know who you're talking to half the time. Whenever you get an email from them, you'll have a load of other people copied into it, and you're not sure who's who. And then one person from the copied in email will start replying to you without copying in the other people. So you start talking to them, and then they won't relay the information onto the original people who are in the original email. There'll be a load of cross wires. It will get confused. You end up having to fucking ring them up and sort it out. Complete nightmare. So yeah, that's Look. I could go on, but I think you're getting a good picture of it. I had dealings with Mavic and Rotor, which I'll do in another podcast. They had their own, shall we say, idiosyncrasies in how they worked. I actually went to see Mavic in France and Italy in June of this year, so I can't be too harsh on them, but they were sort of spastic as well. Right, I've lost count where we are, let's just say 10. Right, the next thing is their e-bikes. Now, Look have decided that they want to make a lot of e-bike gravel bikes. E-gravel, don't know what the fuck they're called, don't care, right? They decided they wanted to import them into Australia. Made a big deal about it, had this idea of doing a big presentation, and then at the last minute they were like, oh, hang on a minute, we haven't actually had our motors approved yet in Australia. Can you do it? To which I said, yeah, sure, and then I basically just quit the job and didn't do it, right? As of yet, I think they haven't managed to get e-bikes into Australia because their company who makes their motors, which is something called Fazwa, I think, haven't got any legal rights to sell in Australia. Good one, lads. You've really, really fucked that one up. There's another fuck up involved in that as well, due to the fact that Australia works on a sort of opposite season thing where summer is winter and all that. The fact that they haven't managed to get their e-bikes in by this time of the season means that they've missed the entire summer season this year, and they're now going to have to wait until next year to ride on that summer season, which will be November time 2020. So yeah, loads of lost sales because they didn't have the foresight to check if they were actually legally allowed to sell their products in the country they were aiming for. And I'd like to add as well, Australia is going to be a pretty fucking good country for gravel e-bikes because there's gravel roads everywhere and everyone's a lazy bastard. So nice one, Look. 11. Look have released this new range of commuting and gravel focused pedals called the Geo range, right? So for so long, Look have had their own standard road pedal, which is not as good as Shimano, and they haven't actually changed the design on that thing for fucking years. Finally, they come along with their own new design of a pedal, a Geo pedal, and what do? They make it just an SPD compatible pedal, proving that there's only one fucking vendor of pedals that you should really even bother with, and all the other ones just want to be them. Now, I can't go this whole way without saying anything good about Look, so I'm going to end on a high, and I'd like to just say the best thing about Look was they gave me a free t-shirt. Best t-shirt I've ever had, so thanks Look. They also gave me a puffer jacket as well, but I binned it.